Amigos y amigas de Conciertos Perú, estamos esta vez con Hot Chip que se presentarán esta noche en el BMF 2019 junto a Franz Ferdinand, Javier Amena y muchos artistas más. No se preocupen si no entienden porque estamos hablando en inglés. Pronto vamos a subir esta entrevista con subtítulos, así que no se preocupen. Mientras tanto estaremos hablando un poco en inglés. Well, guys, nice to meet you. First time here in Lima.
Yes. Thanks, good to be here.
Yes, you've been around North America, a few dates in Japan.
Yeah.
Then you're going back to Europe. How has been this tour so far?
It's been heavy, but it's been really, really fun. Like, we've been working really hard and going to some really, really fun places. Like you mentioned, like going to Japan is always so much fun and it's just so crazy over there. And like, we were actually there for when the big typhoon hit, so it was kind of scary and weird, and
there was an earthquake at the same time.
There was an earthquake at the same time as a typhoon.
Wow.
Nice timing. But then being here in South America, again, going to some places that we've never been to before. So yeah, first time in Peru. We're going to be in Ecuador for the first time as well. So it's been super exciting.
Sure. And in Mexico, when you played Guadalajara, it was the Día de los Muertos.
That's right, yeah.
How was that, playing in such a special festivity?
It was really good, but I felt like we dressed up more than most people.
More than the crowd, yeah. We had
we were
like
expecting
face
everyone would be dressed up.
Yeah.
And also we had problems with our piñata. It was a little bit too well made. So it was quite hard to
Felix was the guy that was really, really going for it. Just like absolutely huge, big movements, and you showed that piñata who was boss.
Well, talking about the show you did in Guadalajara, at the encore, you came back and played Need You Now. I love that song.
It seems to be very popular in like Mexico and South America, Latin America. I don't know, because we don't normally play that song.
Yes, exactly.
We've played it like, a few times this year, but a lot of the audience were shouting for this song. So we were like, okay, we can actually play that song. There's a lot of songs that we can't play because just for boring technical reasons. But yeah, so that's one of your favorites too?
Because of one of those like anthems of like peace and love and house music. Yeah. I really like that.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the album title. Bath Full of Ecstasy, like a really strong title.
Sure.
Can you explain why you choose such a strong...
Well, I mean, it's a fun thing to say. Yeah. And every time that we say it, we usually are smiling and it makes people laugh to hear it. So we wanted something that was positive in that way and evoked kind of feelings of like, just sort of joy and kind of like maybe comfort as well. Yeah. So it was just kind of like, it felt like a good fit for the music on the record.
Sure. I was thinking that during the 90s in many UK garage or UK house, a lot of bands, a lot of DJs start using titles as strong as Cooking Up Your Brain, like the Four Heroes song.
Okay, yeah.
Was that the type of reference you were looking for, these strong titles?
I think, initially it was the title of a song that Alexis had written. So as with a lot of our albums, we end up choosing one of the titles of the songs on the album to become the album title. So I think it was just part of the process of writing the lyrics for that song. That's where that phrase came from.
But it is a little 90s record in some ways.
Yeah, it's a good point. I hadn't thought of it myself.
I don't mind, thinking about it in those terms. Like, there's quite a lot of things like, sort of piano stabs and kind of like, this kind of like crunchy sort of drum style, which is a little bit reminiscent of that kind of music, maybe.
Yeah, I think it works because it means different things to different people, so it has a kind of ambiguity that is good.
Yes, and talking about that ambiguity, if you think about tracks like Hungry Child, more of a classic house like song, and on the other hand, Bath Full of Ecstasy is more of a kind of a pop, like classic, traditional pop. Do you think that those are the two main sides of your music?
Yeah, I would go along with that.
I think that,
and classic pop and
and house dancey
big slamming dance number.
There's also there's a different axis which is between being a bit silly and also being a bit melancholy. So that's another kind of axis hot chip that exists. But,
I mean, there's also songs on the record like Clear Blue Skies, this kind of thing, which is very expansive, kind of like atmospheric music or whatever. And then there's like quieter songs, a lot of like Alexis, is a big fan of these more introspective moments. So that's also something that we do. I don't know, but yeah, for sure, like somewhere between those kind of like pop structures, but then like with this more kind of like ear for what works on the dance floor, I guess.
Yeah, because I imagine that it's a different approach when you try to work on a song with a pop structure, very different than a house or a techno track.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
And talking about pop and mainstream pop, obviously Katy Perry is one of those things that everybody's talking about. And I was wondering how much of mainstream pop is really an influence in your music. Like, are you listening to Selena Gomez or Bruno Mars? Are you
I think we're definitely aware of what's happening. Alexis and Joe have both got children, so they will often be more tuned into like what's on the radio or what is popular, and they'll often be like wanting to listen to Katy Perry or
the kids.
I think that means that those guys probably are more exposed to that kind of thing. But I don't know how much
to maybe like more like pop in the sense of like American like R&B pop stuff, or like you think about like Beyonce production, or in more modern like Lizzo or something like that. We did a remix for Lizzo, and that would be considered to be pop music, I guess, but like is more interesting and like actually has really cool production and really cool songs, and so we listen to that kind of stuff and do get influenced by it. Yeah, you want to try and make something that's like as clean and sharp and powerful and kind of like well put together in that way. And because we've been lucky enough to work with some really good studios and with some really good like producers and engineers, we can actually start to approach to get to that level. We're not like that, and we never will sound like that, but it's definitely a cool thing to try and recreate.
Sure. And now that you mentioned R&B, I was thinking that when you talk about the genre of music that you do, there's like a sense of going back and digging in past scenes. Like when you think about R&B, you might start looking at the 90s or maybe the 60s or even the 50s. How do you feel about this type of music that you do? Do you think it's more interested in the past rather than looking for the future, for the next new thing?
Yeah, I think that's probably fair, because we seem to find more inspiration in old records and things than we do in just trying to make a new sound, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
But I guess the newness is in the combination of the influences and in our own take on those things. But yeah, when we've tried to be more futuristic or experimental, it never really seems to work particularly well.
Like we did this, when we started to use auto-tune. Like I think it was we had this song called I Feel Better, and like auto-tune was already like so old by this point, like it had been used so many times, and then suddenly it's like, hey, like Hot Chip are doing like an auto-tune song, and it's like so it has to almost feel as though it's too way past it, so it's not part of a gimmick, and then we can start to use it like as if it was an instrument, or get into the musicality of it rather than seeing it as a like a fad or like a gimmick,
Sure. And if we have to romanticize about past scenes, which are the ones that you are more into right now? Are you into like Motown or like acid house or disco from the 70s? Like
I have been like listening to some acid house a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's always a big mixture, because also we all DJ a lot, so that means we're constantly finding new music, and we're quite eclectic in what we play. So I don't think there's any particular genre that we're.
I'm not obsessed by one particular thing at the moment.
We listen to a lot of disco and 70s music, basically.
Yeah.
And 80s music.
Yeah, we've been listening to a lot of Human League recently. And then I was this is a very famous song, but still I just sort of was very into playing Adamski's Killer recently. And watching like videos of that song for the first time is like, this is an amazing video on YouTube where you can see him play it like way before like Seal gets involved and all this kind of stuff. And just like they're in a club in Manchester and like it's so crazy like when that song first dropped and then thinking about the impact that it has or whatever. So there's some of those like dance tracks that had a huge that made a huge impact on the scene. We were listening to like Kerry Chandler, Bar of Time. I don't know if you know this one, but like
no.
It's a big Kerry Chandler song, and like again, just like hadn't heard it for a while. I was like, oh my god, yeah, this. I remember when this like hit, and it was such a big deal, and this kind of thing. So sometimes we have little trips down memory lane.
Well, and you formed in the 2000s, but I can imagine that you lived your early like experience during the 90s. And when I was thinking about the 90s and London, like first thing that popped to my mind was the Transporting movie and the scene when Ewan McGregor goes to London and this song So Hard to Feel It. Was that your scene, the one that you were part of?
Well, it was basically two big music things that there was loads of different things, but grunge was a massive thing.
Really?
So at one point we wanted to be like in bands with loud guitars. Or like the Pixies, like a loud bit and a quiet bit.
Yeah, Pixies, Nirvana, all that kind of stuff. That was one side of things. And then
it was drum and bass.
Drum and bass and jungle, It's huge. Like me and Felix used to go to this club called The End in central London, and it was always like these like nights like True Players and like Ronnie Size and all that kind of stuff was really huge. And then getting into like Warp Records and all the kind of weird kind of like versions of that music, which is like basically a bit like sort of weird versions of drum and bass and this kind of thing in jungle. So
Warp Record, what a record label. Well, and if we talk about jungle and the Afro-Caribbean music scene that is so influential in the UK, I was thinking about tracking down in the past and going back to Jamaica. Reggae and dembow, and now we have this Mombaton music, and it's kind of a way to trace it back and find a common root with one of our South American or Latin American music, which is reggaeton.
Right.
So there's almost a connection. So how do you feel about reggaeton or the more like Caribbean side of electronic music?
Yeah, no, it's always been very important to
definitely.
us.
Yeah, I think just having those different rhythms and different kind of sounds or instrumentation or percussion or whatever it is, it's different, bringing different kind of flavors into dance music that you can feel the excitement when you play something like that, especially if it's alongside maybe more kind of German minimal stuff or whatever. When you drop something like that, it will like... people get really excited.
Yes, and you do this on your own music?
Yeah, I mean, I was also thinking about, the way that we worked in the studio, particularly watching somebody like Philippe Zadar, who's our producer, the way that he works in terms of doing mixes, I think is very similar to and influenced by like people like Lee Perry when he was mixing, which is like this idea of the mix as a live performance. So like, you don't just sort of like sit there and just like let the thing play. You're constantly moving around the desk and changing things and adding echoes and all this kind of stuff. And that's a very Jamaican thing. And like that was something that was happening for sure, like when we were doing the mixes on this record. So, not just the sounds, but also like the way that those people work is still very influential, I think. Sure.
Well, going back to the new record, No God, and talking about strong titles, and why do you choose this song to close the album, especially when you have the opening track, Melody of Love? It's such a different approach with a song called No God. What do you like?
I think, in the context of the lyrics, it's kind of a love song, and it's talking about how nothing compares to the person that you love. So. But the title on its own sounds like it's some kind of atheistic statement about not being religious, but it isn't really that. It's quite a simple it's basically quite a simple love song.
Yeah, at the end, the lyrics like end up in a more like
different
positive approach.
It's not really meant to be a negative song.
But,
although having said that, we are all staunch atheists.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, but it's not really a political statement.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't supposed to be like confrontational.
Sure.
But I can see how it could be thought to be.
Well, talking about confrontation, your next gig is in Santiago de Chile.
Right.
And they are struggling with a lot of problems. And
we've been following the news quite closely and keeping an eye on the situation, but at the moment it seems like it's the right thing to do to
go and play.
Sure. I mean,
we have lots of friends there, and you know, for the people that have been working on the festival, it's like really important that, you know, they not going to lose money and not work for no reason. Like if we were to pull out, it would be really bad, I think. And we're going to have to be sensible and just like make sure that we don't sort of like, you know, go and get ourselves into trouble somehow. But we're really excited. It's one of our favorite places to play, and so we're really excited to go.
Any chance to join the protest?
Well, we've been we've been warned very heavily not to do that. You know, and it's a funny situation because, you know, it's like, you know, normally you'd be looking to the police for protection, but it seems to be that they're the ones that so like we're just gonna just be sensible and stay away, I think.
But definitely full support to the people that are protesting.
Yes. Well, in a few hours we are gonna see you playing in BMF, the BMF festival.
Yeah.
Do you have plans in watching and listening to any of the bands that are gonna perform tonight?
Well, sure. I mean, we'll be playing before Franz Ferdinand, so we'll be very excited to see them play after us.
DJ Kotze is playing, I think.
It was always great.
That would be fantastic.
And just to see what the crowds are like, and you know, there's been like fans waiting outside the hotel the whole time that we've been here. So we got given these little llamas by
nice.
So they gave us these, and it says, I don't know if you can see, but it says hot chip on the llamas. So that was very, very cute, and then we all got one of those.
Nice.
So it'll be fun.
Yes.
Great, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Bueno, gente, ya vamos a estar subiendo pronto esta entrevista con subtítulos, así que no se preocupen, y en pocas horas tendremos a Hot Chip por primera vez en Lima. Thank you very much for your time, and see you
Thank you.
tonight.
Bye.